now. Lisa Rooney can calm me down though. Lisa from vibrantlife247.com. And this is where we want you to go to get additional homeopathic support when you need it. And some of you are, and I'm grateful that you've reached out to her. She's terrific, and it's good to see you, Lisa. And it feels like, every time you come on, it's like I feel even more comfortable, more excited that you're adding to the tapestry for homeopathy for all of us.
Same. These conversations are so much fun. It's good to see you again.
So yeah, I was talking about another remedy. It's not the homeopathic hit of the day. I don't know if we've done Pulex irritans, but
Yeah.
just like the Latin irritans irritate. Yes, I'm irritated today,
Yeah.
and I raced to wash everything I was in contact with just in case. I don't know what happened. It was one of those weirdest things, and here I am today. So I'm hoping not no pressure. You'll calm me down, chill me out. But if you have any commentary about anything we've covered thus far and what really the schism between allopathic and homeopathics, because it's manifesting out in all of these things.
Yes, I heard that headline too, and I just kind of went, "What?" Because I've been following RFK for so long that I knew that he didn't say that. And that's what I encourage people to do is if you're he's going to get smeared. There's going to be a lot more things coming out about what he wants to do, or and all of this devastation that he's going to cause because of all these vaccines. And I just encourage people, go to his Instagram page, go to Children's Health Defense, listen to his words, just listen to his words. We have to be taking people at face value for their words, and what they say and the history of their words, because there's no, like, his message has been the same all along. I, he's not against vaccines. He wants them to be safe. He wants adequate testing. He wants them to be safe. He wants to make sure that the science behind the vaccines is actually legitimate science that is going to be protective.
And
If they
Lisa, would you agree that that's probably as far as the consciousness, even with all the COVID stuff, in a general sense, is ready to accept or receive? Because if he went out like I would go out, I recognize that I'm a freedom guy. I want you to have the freedom of choice,
Mhm.
but I would be, of course, much more direct about the lack of safety and efficacy. And in fact, the entire paradigm behind what they call the holy grail of artificially stimulating an antibody,
Mhm.
saying, well, that's all you need. Now you're not going to get a quote unquote disease. It's wrong because of suppressive, basically techniques. So much of it is wrong. But again, that is a schism between a paradigm, a viewpoint of health and how it works versus the allopathic mindset, which is almost a bridge too far.
Yeah, yeah. And what I did when I had my babies, and I'm like you, I don't like to be told what to do, especially when it comes to my babies. I got this message. Okay, I've got to, we're looking at the vaccines, and I've got to give them all these shots, and I've got to protect them from these diseases. And what I did was I went out and I said, okay, what exactly are all these diseases? How do they present? What do they look like? And I went to the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, like all the standard, medical establishments, and I read about each and every single one of these diseases. And because I was concerned about the vaccines as a whole, I went to every single one of the vaccines and I looked up, what is it? What's the ingredients? What's this whole vaccine concept based on? And for me, like, we can talk about adequate testing, and we can talk about 3 days and all of the things that Siri said, but there were a handful of words that caught my attention, which reminded me of when my children were young. He said that that particular polio vaccine, I think what he said, I tried to write it down, was it had immortal monkey kidney cells.
Right, right. Yeah.
Okay. Like, throw away the 3 days. I think about that from the perspective of injecting something into your system. And that's where my alarm bells go off.
Mhm.
Is when you are injecting something in directly into the arm of your child or yourself, you're bypassing all of the body's natural defenses. And the vaccines are doing so, when we're um, injecting multiple vaccines at once, when there's no place in history that you're going to get measles, mumps, and rubella at the same time. And so, to me, those were the alarm systems, and I didn't really even understand all of the immune functions at that time. But thinking of it from that perspective and taking a look at the actual ingredient list, I just got less and less and less comfortable with it.
Hmm.
And so if I was going to be less and less comfortable with that, then I wanted another solution.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I went out, I looked at all the diseases, I looked at how they came about, I looked at what are the symptoms. I knew how to detect what was going on, and I
Hmm.
knew when I needed to take my child to the hospital and
Right.
when I needed to treat them at home. And then
Yeah.
the next layer was, okay, if I'm going to treat it at home, what do I need to do to treat it? So those were the first couple of years of my, early parenting, because I didn't want to be irresponsible, but I also didn't want to subject my children to something that really did not sit well with me. I mean, immortal monkey kidney cells. I
Remember the pushback on that to moms like yourself, whether you're a homeopathic or professional or otherwise. Just don't confuse your Google search with my X number of years of medical education and medical school, for instance.
Right.
But they don't do a dive at all into the things the moms had done, including yourself,
Mm-mm.
despite their ability to get a medical degree. They didn't
Mhm.
go there. You did.
Well, and I
And
looked at I looked at all their sources,
mhm,
and then I went, okay, there's good sources, and it tells you exactly what these diseases look like, how to treat them, which ones are really dangerous, which ones are not, all of that. I mean, I looked at all that, I had all that knowledge. Granted, I didn't go to medical school, but I'm a pretty intelligent person, and I can kind of figure things out.
yeah.
And going back to previous conversations that we've had, these children were gifted to me, they were not gifted to the doctors. So in the end, I'm the first and last line of defense, when it comes to my
Yeah,
children.
absolutely, and I
And
wish, as I said, I always wish the dads would step up the way the moms have, and they're slowly but surely coming online with their warrior,
yeah, yeah.
perspective, but we've had a lot of warrior moms to hit the front lines and take the spears and the arrows, and that's just not right, man. Man,
Yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
We
It'd
need
be
that.
it'd create a lot less pressure for moms if the dads were like, yeah, I'm down, let's do it. And maybe
Exactly.
even leading the charge a little bit, or maybe having the conversations with the physicians a little bit more than the moms
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, and
So
if I were to, recommend, people read some of these books I mentioned, like Official Stories by Liam Sheff, Dissolving Illusions, A Shot in the Dark, going back with Barbara Loe Fisher, Harris Coulter
mhm.
stuff. I mean, there's a lot of research I've been doing now 30 years in. And, I come from a place of, I guess, a lot of experience and knowledge and research, much less clinical. And so I can come across as, very matter of fact. Although many people that have, I guess, a new bias, confirmation bias toward, yes, vaccines are dangerous, perhaps even deadly, they'll hear me speak and they'll go, yeah, right. And I'm not necessarily looking for cheerleaders in that context, but those that are entrenched wholly and totally in a vaccine religion, they hear me speak, and it's like, what can they do but yell and scream and try to censor, because they don't have the ability to go toe to toe or with Bobby Kennedy or Aaron Siri or other of our friends in the natural products health realm. And to say,
Mhm.
polio is a neurotoxin, it's evidence, the paralysis or neurological issue or condition is a result of neurotoxins in the environment, primarily like DDT at the time. And it's not to say only that, but a significant portion of the neural paralysis came from DDT exposure. But there were other heavy metals that were exposed to kids at that time, lead arsenate. A lot of the pesticides were being used were heavy metal based. There was an influx of swimming pools at that time with chlorinated water. How did chlorine infect the microbiome, which affected what? The immune system. On and on. You see all the vectors. And so they want to say it's one virus that causes it, and this shot or these shots are the only thing standing between us and everybody being paralyzed. Who really is making an irrational statement there?
Right. And I get very concerned when there's one way and only one way. When somebody
Yeah,
tells me that my way is the only way, that
exactly.
makes me very concerned. Because
Exactly.
I mean, I think I've mentioned this on the show. My style of parenting is more, yeah, we're not doing that. If everybody's doing it, we're not doing it.
We're going to do the opposite, especially if the FDA says so. Oh my
Right,
gosh.
right.
Yeah. That's why
But
we get
I
along just
encourage,
fine.
this is a scary thing, okay? And for new moms out there, it's not easy. And I am under the impression that the pressure that new moms are getting is way more and much more extraordinary than the pressure that I got 20 years ago. So I don't know for sure, but that's what it feels like. That's what it seems like. And I think as this is coming into kind of a fever pitch discussion, there's going to be more and more and more pressure on new moms. And what I would say is, step back away from all of this rhetoric and all of this noise,
Mm-hmm.
and go do your research and sit with what you've learned, and then go do a little bit more research and sit with what you've learned,
Yeah.
because it really takes you as a woman and as a mother to get very quiet and to tune into your intuition about the direction that you need to go for the safety of your children. And
Yeah.
that's where we find our strength.
Yeah. Now, one more thing about vaccination, if you don't mind. I know it's not the main topic, but we can't help but we need to move that proverbial needle out of the
Yeah.
arms of the innocents and their thighs and their butts, wherever they're injecting them. And, be able to talk about that. Now, we do that here candidly, and I know you can do that as well within your sphere as well as when you're here. And I have talked about the holy grail within vaccinology, which is a denomination of the Church of Pharmaceutical Mysticism. The holy grail for them is this antibody. It's like, the antibody, And yet in immunology, it is acknowledged. I'm not making this up. It's in peer reviewed articles. They teach it. Having an antibody is neither necessary nor sufficient to automatically prevent a given disease associated with what they call the disease. And not having an antibody does not even guarantee that you're going to quote unquote get or manifest the disease. The antibody is just one part of a very complex system called the immune system. Yet we've been sold this simplicity that if all we need to do is that, no matter what the cost, of course, as we talk about what's in them and all of that. And then before we went to air, you were talking about shingles. And I asked, and Super Don, you can open up here as well. I want to ask this for everybody because I thought you were like in your way younger than us and apparently only a little bit, but my gosh, you're looking great. And and then I asked you and Super Don, we're of the Gen X, the best generation, right? Um, I said,
Pretty hardy we are.
right. I said, Lisa, Super Don, do you remember when you were kids or even teenagers and young adults hearing about shingles?
Yeah, not so much.
No. Super Don, no?
The only thing I remember was being told that if you get, I do remember being told that it's better to get the chicken pox when you're young than to get them when you're older, because when
Yes.
you're older,
We were all
it is
told
worse.
that. Yes.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
But shingles wasn't even a part of that statement. It
No.
was just like it'll be worse later. Now, come to the shingles discussion, which happened, earlier on in my homeopathic career. I started looking at a lot of things, including chicken pox and the history, and even nosodes. We talk about homeoprophylaxis. But shingles didn't become a really big thing until the chicken pox shot came out that would prevent normal interaction acquisition of what do you even call it, of this, I call it a rite of passage for childhood development. And then later they came out with a shingle shot, but I believe it was in response to the suppression of a natural evolution of how we grow and develop our immune systems. And then we ended up with this disaster and this shingles thing that they say, oh, that only hope it happens in old people. It's happening in teenagers now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's in the same family. Chickenpox, shingles, they're all in the same family. And of course they had to come up with the shingles shot because they've created now more shingles. People are getting more shingles. And so the way I was just having a conversation about this with a group of people, when we started vaccinating chickenpox out of the population, the benefit to chickenpox is a big boost to the immune system, and we want to be strengthening the immune system. And some of these childhood diseases help to strengthen the immune system. So every time a child got chickenpox, then the parents who likely had chickenpox when they were children got a boost. The immune system was like, oh yeah, I recognize this. I know what to do. And then the grandparents ideally were around as well, and they got a boost, and they likely had it when they were children. So there are 3 generations there that are getting their immune system boosted against this chickenpox virus. When we started vaccinating that out of the population, nobody had the benefit of the boost. And every time we get a boost, the immune system is like, yeah, when I see that again, I know what to do and I can fight it. So does it mean that you're not going to get it? Maybe not necessarily, but it's going to certainly be much more mild.
That's a great point. because I mean, you think about it, it was Susie down the
Mhm.
street got the chicken pox. All right, let's go to Susie's house, right?
We
Yeah.
did that
Get,
for our
get
kids.
right,
Yep.
Yep.
right, and
Yeah.
not to mention the fact that probably on top of that, if you look at the immune system of the population as a whole today versus what it was when we were younger,
Mhm.
I think you've got a deficit that's going on there, right?
We
Based
Yeah.
on all of the
Absolutely.
stuff
Yeah.
that's happened over the last, like you were saying, the 30, 40 years. Everybody's immune system is way weaker now than it
Yep.
was when we were younger.
Well, and chronic disease is up beyond belief as
Yeah.
well in an age when you shouldn't have no chronic disease. I was the
Yeah.
canary in the coal mine of Gen X, and you guys have, what are your own experience? But again, we never heard of this. And then we come to what? The discussion we're having. Outrageous. You guys want to have everybody die of chickenpox now, they'll say, right? Because chickenpox parties were a thing, and we did it. And they're like, oh, these parents think chickenpox. I mean, they're like, you're going to kill your kids. That's how far we've been removed from tribal knowledge, grandma's knowledge, grandpa's knowledge, that they say this and get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and notwithstanding, I mean, there are going to be kids that are going to be higher risk and they're going to suffer more from something as mild as childhood chickenpox. And so, notwithstanding that, but yeah, had a chickenpox party too. I would do chickenpox over the flu any day with those littles. It was so much easier. And all we did was we hung out, we played games, we supported the immune system, and we were over in about 7 days.
Amazing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
those most of those people who are at risk, we have homeopathic responses that can help them. And that's not widely known either. It's like it's either you get the shot or you die. But there's no acknowledgement of various holistic modalities,
Right.
non-toxic modalities, herbalism, homeopathy, energy healing, chiropractic, naturopathy. It's like it doesn't exist. Is you either want to get the shot or you want them to die. You see that binary approach and how people have fallen for it? It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some emotional things we need to address. How about Kali Phosphoricum? What do you think?
Sounds like a great segue into this remedy. So, this remedy is all about mental exhaustion, frayed nerves, and oversensitivity. I actually, this is one of my favorite remedies. So, this is a cell salt versus a homeopathic remedy. So, let's talk a little bit about what a cell salt is so that your listeners can understand, because many people confuse cell salts and homeopathics. They are homeopathics, but they're a little bit different. And so, let's kind of clear that up. So, cell salts, the founder of the cell salt method was a doctor named Wilhelm Schuessler. And he called this system biochemic cell salts or just cell salts, for
Mhm.
short. So he was around the time of Hahnemann, and he was really profoundly impacted on the works of Hahnemann and another physician of that time called Rudolf Virchow. So Virchow was a German physician, and he is known as the father of cell theory. And so through his works, what he believed was that every form of suffering is only based on a disorder of the cells. And that statement had a very profound impact on Schuessler. So, as he was developing his system, what he did was he studied the ashes of those who had been cremated to see what minerals were lacking. And he began to see consistencies in minerals that they were lacking and the diseases that they were suffering from. And so, what he came to believe, with this cellular theory kind of in the back of his mind, that the deficiencies in these minerals are the sources of all of these common health problems. So when he tied that into Virchow's cell theory, that if suffering is based on a disorder of the cells, then proper nourishment of the cells can prevent or minimize that suffering. And that's kind of how cell salts and the theory of biochemic cell salts was born. Now, what distinguishes a cell salt from a homeopathic remedy? So, homeopathic remedies are made from substances that are toxic in their crude form, yet curative in their homeopathic form. And they're found outside of the body. So, homeopathic remedies do not give the body a stimulus that's made from substances that the body already has. So, remember, he looked at the ashes of people who had been cremated, and he was looking at the minerals that were within that body. And those are the cell salts. So the homeopathic remedies we don't find within the structure of our body. It's an external stimulus. Cell salts are made from substances that are already found within the body, and they're already integral parts of our cellular structure. So what they do when you utilize the cell salts, they return the body to homeostasis by giving it a little bit extra of what it already has. The body recognizes it and then helps to rebalance the system. So homeopathic remedies are external, cell salts are internal, but cell salts are kind of I consider them like a subset of
Mhm.
homeopathic remedies.
I do too. I mean, they work on the principle, but there's some perspectives on it that are unique. That's why they
Yeah,
were
it's really
kind of
kind of
given
where
their
they
own,
where they come from,
right?
you know.
Kind of their own little category within that, and
Yeah.
they're absolutely amazing. I've used them for years, and there are complexes of all of them, so you don't
Mhm.
have to know, oh, which one. You can safely take them all. They're not going to typically trigger what we call sometimes an aggravation or a crisis. They seem to be much more supportive of function in
Yeah.
many ways. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and so in my practice, I am seeing a lot of cellular deficiency, like mineral deficiency down to the cellular level. And I think that's, we've got a lot of layers of toxicity. Remember, I've talked about I look at things through the lens of toxicity, trauma, and thoughts. So we've got a lot of toxicity, we've got a lot of trauma, all that stress depletes our systems. And so I see a lot of deficiencies at a cellular level. And what's great about the cell salts is that they're kind of considered like the vitamins and minerals of homeopathy. So when a remedy stalls, we can add in a cell salt, and that oftentimes helps to jumpstart the picture. Or if I see somebody who's very minerally depleted, then I want them on the biochemic cell salts. And they're super safe. You can take them for a long time.
Right.
They're great for babies. They're great for kids. They're great for adults. Super easy to use. That's the other thing I love about them is they're super easy to use.
Yes. Yes.
So Kali Phos.
Yes.
Kali Phos is found in the nerves, in the brain, and in the muscles predominantly. It's really in all of the tissues, but that's where we find that particular mineral. And so the main focus of this remedy is exhaustion, mental and physical, nervous tension, oversensitivity, both mentally, emotionally, or all three, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and then weakness, especially kind of with memory. So people who need Kali Phos, they're going to feel as though everything is just beginning to like push them beyond their ability to cope. There's mental exhaustion, there's might be anxiety, there might be nervousness, nervous dread, or kind of a foreboding feeling. They may also have an obsession with whatever, the shock is, or the thing that is kind of upsetting them. It's just kind of spinning and they can't seem to like settle themselves. And there's a lot of emotionality about that. They're going to be very overly sensitive, both mentally and physically, to their environment and to, the words and all of the things that are going on. Lots of brain fog, brain fatigue, especially over overwork. They might have depressed spirits, irritability, impatience. They might have poor memory, and a lot of times you can see that poor memory when it's linked to words. Like, I can't remember that word, I can't pull up that word. And oftentimes during those periods when you're having a lot of overwork, a lot of mental stress, and so you just kind of, your brain's starting to shut down, you're getting dull, you're having a lack of energy. It could be physical, could be mental. This is also one that is good for kids who have night terrors
Mhm.
and might sleepwalk. So I use this remedy quite a bit within my shock and trauma combos. It's a
Mhm.
great remedy for shock when there's been agitation,
Mhm.
or that goes along with agitation, like they're agitated by the by the shock. They might feel very emotionally raw. Uh, they get cold after the shock. So there's a temperature thing that goes with Kali Phos. Their outbursts after the trauma or emotional upset, and then they might ruminate about their upset. So again, I use this quite a bit within my combinations for people who have had shock and trauma, and it doesn't have to be a recent shock and trauma. It can be something from, a long time in the past as well.
Mhm.
So, those are the mentals, and I love to tell stories. So I'm going to share a couple stories here. So, um, when we moved to the Atlanta area, I transitioned my children out of a homeschooling environment and back into brick and mortar. I felt like that was kind of the best thing to do. They were in the high school at the time, and it just, was right for our family at the time. So they were getting used to kind of the pace of brick and mortar school. And so I remember one time Paige came home and she was just exhausted. She was like, Mom, I just can't think anymore. And she kind of threw her backpack on the ground and she was, very upset. So I went over to my cabinet and I pulled out the Kali Phos and I gave her a dose. I said, "Here, take this and just relax, you'll be fine." And a few minutes later, she grabbed her backpack. She went upstairs. I said, "Go upstairs, chill out, just relax for a little while." Well, about 15 minutes later, I went upstairs and she was working on her homework. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine, Mom." So it pulled her back like that quickly. Um, Great remedy. I use this remedy when I'm in decision fatigue, or I'm like maybe working on classes, or I'm preparing a lot of information, doing a lot of research, and I just start getting really mentally fatigued. This is a great remedy for students leading up to and during exam week, executives, especially during like budget season or when they're working on big projects. All the entrepreneurs probably need this. Moms who are juggling, lots of decisions for their kids. So the keynote is that you just start to get this mental fatigue. And when I get mental fatigue, I go into freeze. Like I'm not making any more decisions. I'm done. And my husband and I just had this thing literally just the other day, which kind of clued me into the fact that I actually needed Kali Phos. We have all these projects that are going on in the house, and he was like, "Well, since we've got the painters in, why don't we do this and this and this and this and this?" And I was like, I can't. I can't make any more decisions. I am at decision fatigue. Like my
Right.
brain just, I was stuck. There's no momentum. There's no energy. And I needed a reset. So Kali Phos helped with that reset.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I like it in a 6X and a 200C. So for the emotional stuff, I will use it in a 200C. With Paige, I used it in a 200C. For myself, I took it in a 200C. But for the longer periods of time, like during exam week or during that budget season, or when you're working on a lot of projects that take a lot of mental energy, then I go to 6X and I use it a couple of times a day, morning and night or morning, afternoon, or I'll put it in my water and sip on it throughout the day because I need that sustained, reboot.
Well,
Yeah.
the practical tips that you're giving here today are so valuable. Thank you. And for those of you who are so intrigued, remember Lisa does consult support as well as has classes, a lot of availability. And I know you've been hearing from more folks. I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah.
Are you finding some interesting questions about the process people don't know? Is it still new to a lot of folks that are reaching out to you, or are they like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I've been looking forever and now I'm ready," right away?
Yeah, yeah. So, I work a little bit differently than a typical homeopath does because I have this coaching piece. And so, what I recommend is people go to my website, book a discovery call with me, and we'll talk about what you actually need. Some of my clients, some people have needed, coaching along with the homeopathic consults. So, I always add in the homeopathic consults. That's part of my coaching package. And, we figure out what are the right remedies to work, in the background as we're working on all of the other things that are going on in your life. Some people just need a homeopathic consult. They don't have a lot going on. They're not in a transition. They don't have, emotional stuff that's going on. They're, and homeopathic consults are just more appropriate. So,
Mhm.
with that discovery call, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out how best I can help you. And then, we'll go from there.
Yeah, you guys can schedule a free
Free.
discovery call. Like,
Yes.
how awesome is that? I mean, the worst you have is you'll spend 20 minutes talking to a wonderful homeopathic healer, Lisa, and you
Yeah.
might go, "Oh, well, no, that's not what I wanted." But many times you'll find, "Wow, I've been needing this for a long time." So you
Yeah.
guys check it out. And we have it linked up as always in the show notes, as well as on our areas of products we love, the people we love and appreciate. Vibrantlife247.com, and that's how you can work with Lisa as well. I've also invited her to be a special guest on our Zoom call, which is once a month, our Ask Me Anything for our Patreon supporters. So those of you who are supporting us directly in that way, you're going to get a little bonus time with Lisa. It's not going to be a full-on webinar seminar, but part of the, off the air, right? You'll feel a little bit more comfortable about maybe asking some tough questions because this community that we have, has developed it's like family. So if you guys want to join us on, and by the way, I know we had mentioned earlier, Super Don, when did we mention this? Because I don't even think I've said it because it was our first live show. Well, Monday we were live, and I thought I was going to come home and then go out to Phoenix for the AmFest, and now I don't have to. So we, as far as I
We
know,
actually did say it on the air. I think it was on Friday.
did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We mentioned it, and I was like, okay, well, we'll change it.
So I'm going back and forth on this too, because you know what?
No, we got to stick with Saturday.
What?
We got to stick with Saturday.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about, is it possible that we could go to the RNC store with John Richardson Jr.'s Christmas party at the Giving Tree and indulge in that organic, no seed oil, no gluten food, right? I mean, like, that part of me is going, man, I don't get to go to a lot of Christmas parties. So I'm just saying, I admit it. I acknowledge it. I went to the, where was it? The Organic Farmers Table, which is an organic restaurant, a family-owned business in Sarasota. When I go there, I get to indulge in a delicious organic meal out. And one of the things on the list, pardon me for all you vegans and vegetarians, they called it the $1 Million Burger. They took a grass-fed, grass-finished filet mignon, converted it into a burger.
Wow.
OMG. When I say top 3, it's hard for me to go.
That's
maybe
like
the top
that's like a Chop House burger.
I've never had anything that delicious in burger, and I've had a lot of good burgers. So
Nice.
just saying, I'm throwing it out there as I'm vacillating. Maybe I need to.
What was the name of that
You
restaurant?
sound hungry.
In Sarasota?
Yeah.
It's called Organic Farmers Table in Sarasota.
Okay, I have a niece in Sarasota, so when I go
definitely.
visit them,
You want
definitely go there.
You want to support them, and it's funny because when we went in there with my friends from Natural Immunogenics, we had dinner. It was really great. The first thing I do, one of the young ladies there is part of the family, the daughter of the mother there. She's like, "Oh, hey," and she says, "How's your daughter?" Because I had introduced them by Instagram because they're about the same age, they have the same interest, and I thought that was really, how often do you go to a place where people, it's like Cheers, who everybody knows your name, that kind, but in a real thing. So that was fun.
Love it.
Had a delicious meal there. Anyway.
Love it.
So,
and I'm very excited to be coming and talking to your group this Saturday. I'm very honored that you invited me.
There it is. Yes. And if I'm not there, you take it over just in case.
So you want to talk about the physical symptoms of Kali Phos?
Real quick, because we've been having such a great conversation that I need to do the Lac Felinum too. But yes, hit the physical ones and we'll do the homeopathic hit.
Yeah, real quick. So oversensitive, the main thing is they're oversensitive to their environment. So there's often going to be feelings of being too cold. They're going to be sensitive to changes in the weather, always turning the temperature kind of up and down, putting on a sweater, then taking off the sweater, turning on the fans, taking off the fans. And this is all in an attempt to kind of find the right or the safe temperature for them so that they can be comfortable. Mm-hmm. Also, nervous headaches, especially associated with mental exhaustion, headaches from anger, stress, overwork. And then Kali Phos is also associated with the color yellow. So think yellow discharges, yellow stools, yellow coating on the tongue, seasonal allergies. And a strange, rare, and peculiar symptom that I always like to look at those is they might smell like old onions. So they might have a body odor that is old onions, or either the discharges smell like onions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, there you go.
Kind of a quick on the physicals.
Thank you. Kali Phos is covered now. All right. So let's do our homeopathic hit. It comes from the movie Meet the Parents. Super Don, hit it.
Playing all of the homeopathic hits every day, right here on the Robert Scott Bell Show.
So let's do a little introduction to this. The Latin name Lac Felinum is what you think it is. It's cat milk, and thanks to our friends at Ascent Nutrition, Folium PX, and of course Lisa for their support of this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty that we couldn't do it without all of y'all. And remember, integrative coaching, you want it, you can get it. VibrantLife247.com. And why did I bring up the movie Meet the Parents, Super Don? What was the scene with Ben Stiller's character and
Yes, he
the
was
dad?
talking about how he was making up a story about milking the cat, and he
Yeah.
said, "Well, you can milk anything with nipples." And
Yes.
the father-in-law says, "Well, I've got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?"
That was, look, one of the funniest little mini scenes that has been quoted often. And now we have an opportunity to do it with this homeopathic kit because it's about milking cats, not kittens, but it's the milk from cats. And it can be converted in as everything ultimately can into a homeopathic form. And it's most often indicated for various emotional issues, instability, anxiety, feelings of inadequacy. A great depression of spirits is one way they put it, and I think it was in the Clark Materia Medica. Heightened sensitivities, neurological things, emotional discomfort, agitation, overstimulation. We heard that today as well. Again, it's not only one remedy that has these things, and that's why the skill set of someone like Lisa could be someone to help you if you feel like it's over your head to do this. But it is safe to do this at low potency. It's fine. Nervous restlessness as well, low self-esteem, proving yourself. So, whether you're doing a 6X, a 12X, 12C, 30X, 30C, or if you want to go higher to a 200C, then I usually recommend consulting so that you match the remedy really well and you don't end up not succeeding in what you're trying to do, or the risk of aggravation with lac felinum probably pretty low, but still, I want you to succeed. So here's some other remedies that fit into the emotional category, not an exhaustive list, but these homeopathic hits are just quick hits to pique your interest. Ignatia, Amara, grief-related emotional instability, nervousness. We've talked about Ignatia for mourning as well. Pulsatilla can be utilized for mood swings, emotional hypersensitivity. Natrum muriaticum has a lot of emotional aspects to it as well, suppressed emotions. And sepia, of course, manifestations of depression, a lot more in that realm. So we can utilize lac caninum on its own, or if you want to do a combination, there are ways to go about it this way. But the reason we do these homeopathic hits, of course, is not to replace a doctor if you have or want one, but to provide information you didn't have, I didn't have growing up. And maybe you go, something lights up for you and go, wow, I really need to look into that. And then you can do that online. Even if you don't own a Materia Medica, they're all online now. You can research it and go, is that right for me?
In
Is that
fact,
not
there's
right?
one website that has like all the Materia Medicas on it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I was
And I'm
checking
not
it out.
saying it's going to be
Yeah.
easy to navigate if you've never tried to read a Materia Medica. That's why, if you feel like you're over your head, we have Lisa Rooney to help.
That's right. And real quick before we
Yes.
have to go, because we got like a minute left
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
What is this thing that's going to be starting next month called Ditch and Switch?
Oh, yeah.
Ditch and
That's cool.
switch. Yes, I'm so excited about this. This is something that I have wanted to do for a long time. So we were having conversation. I think it was last month, maybe,
I think
or
so. Yes.
yeah, a couple weeks ago. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start a new program, I guess, I guess you call it, on the days that I'm on the show. We're going to do ditch and switch instead of the homeopathic hit. And so we're going to take a look at your standard allopathic over-the-counter things that you would use and provide you some opportunities, some homeopathic remedies or other natural remedies that you can switch to if you so desire to ditch those over-the-counter pharmaceutical options. Now, we are not telling you to ditch them, especially if your doctor is telling you that you should be taking them, but we like to give people options.
Looking forward to
Beautiful.
that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's gonna be fun.
a fun evolution and a healing and homeopathic revolution. Very excited.
Yeah,
So thank you
yeah.
for that. Dude, I'm feeling it today, guys. You can see it, you can hear it in my voice. I haven't even slowed down enough to even go, well, what remedy should I be taking right now? I know a number that are popping up into my consciousness, but I've got to fight through it because it's been a very busy morning on through this. But Lisa, it's always great to have you on. I can't wait to see you Saturday for
Me too.
the AMA. And you guys, if you want to join in, you could become part of that by being a patron supporter of the Robert Scott Bell Show. It's actually quite ridiculous for as little as $5 a month. It doesn't, I mean, that's nothing now. That's ridiculous, right? It's one gold back or less than one gold back, is it?
Yep.
So thank you, Lisa. I look forward to getting more stories from you on Saturday.
Sounds great. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.